It is 7 o'clock. Is staff ready for us to start? Okay. All right, let's call to order this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission meeting. And may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Peters? Commissioner Bond?
Here.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Here.
Vice Chair Alexander?
Here.
And Chair Leonard.
Here.
Everyone is present.
Thank you. Okay, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. All stand, please. And Commissioner Peters, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to receipt of correspondence. We did receive some e-comments.
Correct. You've received 4 e-comments.
Okay, so those will be accepted into the record, but we need to vote on receipt. So can I have a motion to receive these comments, please? And a second, okay?
So I have a motion by Vice Chair Alexander, seconded by Commissioner Mohammed, to receive all correspondence. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and that passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Community announcement by members and information items from staff. Yes, Commissioner Peters.
I just want to say I'm very excited for the Abilities Carnival this weekend. I know Girl Scouts have been working very, very hard on setting things up and creating new games for the carnival. I'm very excited to see how they have gone, and I think it'll hopefully be great. I think all the games work. We've tested them out, so I'm really looking forward to that. Also, just, it's been fun also to see both AYSO and Little League back in action. I know there's been some problems with some fields and getting field time and problems with some fields being a little muddy. But hopefully, we get a good parks plan and we can start to deal with these issues. But it's been fun to see everybody back out there this fall.
Okay, great. Anything else from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Bond.
I would just like to say that I was speaking to, well, he's a fellow swimmer, and what we were talking about, he was talking about the parks aftercare as well as the summer camps, and he was just singing your praises. So I wanted to let the staff know just how much these aftercare and summer programs mean to the community.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Vice Chair Alexander.
Thank you. Speaking of singing and dancing, they're going to have the annual Halloween party at the Senior Center, to which I will attempt to be one of the 3 judges of the wonderful designs that these seniors, they must have been involved in the business somewhere, either costuming or makeuping, but it's really nice. And one other thing Is there feedback here, or am I talking too loud?
It's fixed. It's fixed.
Oh.
You're okay.
Okay, thank you. Where was I? Oh, the senior center, just so the community knows, you can become a member if you're 50 years old, and I know that I became a member. And so I received in the mail a postcard from them. They're going to be having elections for the senior center board, and my understanding is some of the members that are on there are termed out, so they'll need a certain cadre of people who are interested in sort of, helping to guide the governance and some of the programming at the senior center. So if there's anybody in the community that might be interested in that, please contact the folks that run the senior center, because they put on great programs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else over here? And any items from staff?
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Francisca Castillo, Recreation and Community Services Manager. I'd like to introduce Daniela Gutierrez. She's one of our newly hired Recreation and Community Services Supervisors. Daniela, please come up to the podium. I just wanted for you all to put a name with a face, because you'll probably be seeing some email correspondences regarding any special events or newsletters to that capacity. So I'll have Daniela introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela Gutierrez. I'm happy to be here. I think I've worked with a few of you, specifically Jane. I'm approaching a month as an RCS supervisor. I'm just excited to be here. I'm currently overseeing the Veterans Memorial Building rentals operation and registration, as well as special events. So I'm sure I'll be communicating with you all more frequently. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
I think that's all for now. We'll save our stuff for the end.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay, next item we have is the item I-1, update on development of the parks plan.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Just briefly, I'll just give you a quick update on a couple items. The draft plan is now available online on the website, so you can check that out. We've started getting feedback on the draft plan. We had a meeting last week over at Culver West. We had a few people show up. A lot of people trickled in kind of later, but we did have a few people show up and give us some good feedback. We have our next in-person community meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 at Lindbergh Park. And then we have a virtual meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. That meeting will be recorded and then available for anyone who couldn't attend a meeting. They'll be able to watch this meeting online. And there is space online to provide feedback on the draft plan. So all the regular surveys that before are no longer available. Now the survey or the comments we're seeking are on the draft plan. And they can give specific comments on each of the different parks or just general comments about any of the other issues that are in the parks plan. So that's where that is. As far as timeline goes, they'll be accepting comments through November, I think it's November 8th or 10th? 10th? 5th? Oh, November 5th, I'm sorry. Through November 5th, we'll be taking comments on the draft. We'll be taking the draft plan to the Planning Commission at the end of October. And then after we get all the comments through the 5th of November, they'll be working on finalizing the draft plan, and then it should be coming to the commission in January for a report, and then, so we'll probably be adding that onto your agenda for January. So that's where we are with that.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very exciting. The event, the meeting that they've had for was really, really very cool. Okay, onto the consent calendar. C1, approval of the minutes of the regular Parks Recreation Community Services Commission meeting of September 3rd, 2024. Has everybody had a chance to read those? And do we have a motion to accept or any comments?
No comments, and I think there's already a motion on tabled.
Yep, thank you. Waiting.
I do need a second. Do I have a second?
Okay, you certainly do.
I do not have the option to second. I thought I hit the motion to accept.
There's already a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Oh, there is,
I can let
okay.
you
I thought I had hit it and then, I don't know
Yeah,
what
no.
happened, then it disappeared.
Working on
Okay.
getting it.
Right. So I have a motion from Vice Chair Alexander, seconded by Commissioner Bond, to approve the minutes of the regular Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission meeting of September 3rd, 2024. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and that passes with 4 yes and 1 abstain from Commissioner Peters.
Okay, thank you. Is there any interest in reordering the items on the agenda? The action items? Okay. Item A1, receipt and filing of the report regarding the Culver City summer camp programming and registration.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I will be giving this presentation this evening. So this is our summer camp recap. So this year we had 4 camps held at 3 different sites. We had Just for Kids and Teen Camp held at Veterans. At El Moreno, we had Junior Camp, and at Lindbergh, we had Specialty Camp. So these are some of the excursions that we went on this year. Excursions are always a big hit, and kids love them. This year, these are a few of them: Aquarium, Universal Studios, Scooters Jungle, El Capitan, the Zoo, and the Sparks. So out of the different camps, the teens went on separate camps. So a few of their excursions were Dodgers game, Universal Studios, Six Flags, Raging Waters, indoor skydiving, to name a few. And then LA Sparks and LA Zoo, all 3 areas went to those, and they were all very successful. We did, for the teen camp, the Magic Mountain, and I believe one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. They did, because they're teens, we did come back later than typical, the rest of the excursions for Just for Kids. That is something that we did new this year that I think the teens really appreciated. Registration. Okay, so all of residents and non-residents register at 7 a.m. The difference is that residents start a week earlier than non-residents. We have surveyed 10 other cities, and out of the 10 cities, there wasn't anybody that did registration different. The biggest differences were 3 of the cities did non-resident and resident at the same time. 2 of the cities did in-person registration only, but all of them across the board were on a first-come, first-served basis. The reason, obviously, we were surveying is to see what other options were out there. I know that the commission asked for this to look at other ways, and so wanted to talk about one of the things that we were brainstorming about and trying to see in the future if there's another way to do registration. We had looked at a lottery system, and on the surface, a lottery does seem fairly straightforward, but once we started to dive into that process is where we really came into challenges. We were thinking we would start with like a 2-week period of time where everybody would have a chance to put in their name. They could only do 1 camp per child so that everybody had an opportunity rather than having everybody sign up for specialty camp and Just for Kids. So that was one of our parameters. And then in looking at it, say the 2 weeks closes and then we go to draw names or however we would pick the lottery. At that point is when our challenges really came in. So what if people start to get picked and they have 2 vacations, so they only want to use 8 weeks, or they don't want to start until week 4, or they can only do every other week because they have all of these sports weeks. In a lottery system, that is extremely challenging then to try to go down once you've, say our camp maxes at 100 people for Just for Kids. Once we've reached that 100 and it fills up and we have all of these random gaps, we can't afford then to go back and say, well, did you just want week 1 and where are you on week 2? Another issue is if they do have siblings and say Just for Kids fills up right away, but the junior doesn't, so then there's a kid in one camp and not in the other. So we were hitting these obstacles. And so, one of the realizations that we made was there's a reason that everybody is doing first come, first serve. I do see the reasoning behind some in previous cities that I've worked for, we have done the registration in person only. But that doesn't work for everyone because a lot of people work and it's easier to go online. So we are still looking to see if there's anything that we have missed. But at this point, with the surveys that we've done and kind of our internal knowledge and brainstorming, we haven't been able to come up with anything. But we are still looking at options. Another option we looked at for the lottery system was, what if we did a week at a time in the beginning of the summer? But then the same thing came up. What if I felt, and Recreation Community Services, Megan is a parent as well and really is looking at this from a parent perspective of, so say I get into 2 weeks, then what do I do the rest of the summer? It's almost worse to have spotted camps and having everyone trying to fill the rest of the summer than having 100 kids at least know and parents know where they're going to be during that time frame. So we have looked at a lot of different options. And I will take questions at the end, but next. So for staffing, just so you're aware, our ratio is 12-1 when we are actually at camp. When we are swimming, it's 10-1. These are some of our challenges, right? So location capacities. We can only allow a certain amount of kids within any of our sites. When it comes to vets, one of our biggest challenges is that in addition to our camp, we also have contract classes that have camps inside the vets building. We have a music and dance contract class that is very popular in the auditorium, which is a very big space, but it's obviously more productive for a musical theater type contract class. We also have other camp programs within vets that occupy our 2 biggest rooms. So Just for Kids, and all of us are basically located out of the teen center. So location in general is a challenge. The only other site that's currently not being occupied by a camp is Blanco. And you'll see that in the next slide. That is something that we are looking at. But again, capacity for that building isn't very much. It's not a huge area, but we do need to make sure we have staffing because it is a big challenge. We have call-outs throughout the summer, as well as obviously these kids are taking lots of vacations, lots of time off, so we always have to have a contingency plan. So those are some of our challenges. So this is additional challenges that we have. We open at 7 a.m. and there is a significant chunk, I would say at least probably 15 to 20% sign up for the entire summer and keep it and hold that and then get refunds right before. Our refund procedure is 7 days prior to get a full refund. So they'll keep it all and then right before they'll get a refund because they don't need it anymore. So then by that time, yes, we have a huge wait list. We take off the wait list all summer. But by that point, there's a lot of parents that would have been able to use that spot a few weeks prior when they knew that there was space open. But now they're scrambling to find. And so, yes, there are still people that can take the spot, but it is definitely a challenge. Another one is the ActiveNet system itself. We had a lot of parents that signed up for themselves and not the children, which created a lot of chaos and confusion for signups. We are absolutely looking at next summer, specifically before registration, doing an ActiveNet training for all parents wanting to go on. So we'll basically give a tutorial of how to sign up, how to put everything in ahead of time, how to be prepared so that they understand how the system works. We do have, because our CARP registration is based on priority, if you are in the month, you're able to register for the next month. We have many families that continually complain to us that they feel that should extend to the summer. For us, we don't think that that's equitable, so which is why we don't do that, but that is something that we hear frequently. And then lastly, lack of space and availability. As we talked about, I mean, we are using all of our facilities to the maximum that we can use them at this point. We have competing camps that are kind of everywhere. You'd see them at vets, you'd see them at outside on the parks at some of our other park sites. So there are a lot of options in the city, and we don't have a ton of space and availability. Things that we're looking for 2025. So to start, there is a fee study, which I believe everybody is aware of, that has been in progress for a while now. The CARP parents did go to a meeting or had a meeting a few months back, letting them know that this was coming and that there is potential increases in the fees. But at this point, we don't have that new fee study yet, so we don't know exactly what that would look like. But that is definitely a possibility that we expect. We will also be charging for excursions. This past summer, that is not something that we did. We have done it in years past, prior to me, and it is very typical in most agencies to charge for excursions. You have a choice of whether to go or not. The child can stay back and still enjoy the great camp experience without going on the excursion. We charge basically the cost of the ticket for wherever they're going, and depending on the bus, a portion of a bus fee. We are also looking at a potential low-income option, which would be a subsidy that we would provide based on specific parameters in-house, but that is something that we would need to bring up during the budget cycle. And then lastly, Blanco Park is a potential site addition. Again, that is limited to number of kids. It's not a very large site, but we cannot say that until we know what our staffing looks like. Unfortunately, really, until our very last minute, we're not going to know whether or not we can provide that, depending on where our staffing levels are. This summer, for example, we did get staff throughout the summer, so we were able to add more kids, but we never know exactly what that's going to look like, and I'm hesitant to add another site without having any of those numbers. That is our presentation. I am open to answering any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners? Okay, I'm going to start down here with Commissioner Peters.
Thank you so much. So I think, being the only one on the commission who's fully impacted by these camp issues and still has kids that go to camp and lots of friends who go to camp, I feel like, I'm deeply invested in this issue. So first, I just have some thoughts about registration. I mean, one issue maybe is just changing the time of day that registration opens. I think 7 a.m. is hard because you're trying to get kids out the door for school. 9 a.m. is hard because some people have already had to go to work. So maybe an evening time would be better, maybe at like 7 PM registration time might be better. I was also curious if there's not a way that instead of giving a lottery for the weeks, if there's just like any way to set up, like you get a lottery for your spot in line to sign up. I don't know if there's a system that would allow you to do that easily. I also just was thinking on the so this is sort of just was my thoughts, having looked at your presentation in front of time and what you've said today. With the refund issue, our refund policy is way too generous and is way more generous than any other camp. Most of the camps, that I signed my kids up, and I think this even includes like the Office of Child Development camp. If you cancel, you have like the more generous camps like give you a month before to cancel and get all your money back. The less generous ones are like, sorry. And then, the closer you do it to the date, you get less of a refund. And I think if, I know lots of people who do in fact sign up for every single week and then decide what they're doing. And maybe they remember to, get in touch with you all early and say, oh, my kid's not coming this week. Can I get a refund? But maybe they don't. So I think, one way to deal with that problem would be to start saying like, after, a month ahead of time, maybe it's, you only get 50% back. And if it's, 2 weeks ahead of time or less, maybe you don't get the money back unless you have something like a doctor's note that's like, my kid had their appendix out and can't go to camp, something like that. I think that would be a way to help solve this issue of people dropping out, because people do see that the easy refund means that I should just go ahead and sign up for everything, and then once I set my vacation plans and stuff, I'll drop out. So I think that is an area where I think it's totally reasonable. I also just remember that last summer we had somebody ask questions about payment plans instead of having to pay for camp all up front. And whether that, maybe there's like a deposit system or something. I know that can be an issue for folks to have to pull out the credit card, because it all happens in February, March, y'all. And suddenly, oh boy, if you saw my March credit card bill with the number of camps, suddenly I've got paying a huge amount more. Something comes out your credit card bill at that same time. So I know that can be really hard for families. So those are some thoughts just in terms of managing the registration. In terms of the excursion fees, my one concern about not having those baked into the camp fee, and maybe this means that we should push up the camp fee, is you might get some lower income families where the kid can never go on the excursion. And is that going to cause some sort of issue? So maybe it makes sense just to bump everybody's total fee up, and then if possible offer a low some sort of scholarship or something, or to offer scholarships for the excursions or something like that. I just would feel bad if you're going to the zoo and there's some little kid who loves the zoo, but his parents can't really afford the extra $20 or $40. And being on the PTA, I know how much those buses cost, and I feel your pain on the bus costs. So I just wouldn't want, I just could imagine some little kid crying that they can't go, and that would be so hard. And so I think, instead of adding that as an additional option, maybe just bake it into the total cost might be a better solution. And then finally, when we think about fees, please God, don't raise the fees on aftercare or on summer camp. Let's think about some other things, just because dear God, as parents are it's a lot, y'all. It's a lot of money. And I know a lot of families in this town are struggling with home prices. So if we can find money elsewhere, let's start charging the pickleball players. I'm sorry, I did not say that. Don't put that in there. I'm kidding. But think about that. But otherwise, I think that, in some ways, it's kind of it's a problem, but in some ways we have an awesome problem in that people really love our camps and the kids really love them. And the problem we're not sitting here talking about that only 4 families want the camps and we have to close camps. We're talking about the opposite problem that we have. So many people want their camps. And so finding ways to try to add more space at Blanco, and I know hiring is a problem, but figuring that out, all those sorts of things are just, in some ways they're good problems to have, but I know they're still problems.
So I tried to take notes. So let me try to address some of the things that you had mentioned. So the lottery, the number for online, I think that only works if we're in person because our system doesn't differentiate like that. It doesn't have that capability. And I do think that an in-person registration system just isn't effective. And so, I mean, I appreciate that. I just think that that would be a challenge. In terms of refunds, yes, fully agree. Our refunds are set across the board for everything that happens, for rentals, for picnic shelters, so things like that. So when it was being developed into what it is now, all of those were taken into consideration. So it wasn't just camps alone or CARP alone. So that does make it difficult, but it is something that I wrote down as, going back and looking at that because I do think that that would help is making that a harder process to book everything and then cancel. So that's something that I wrote down that we will look at. In terms of payment plan, so prior to the pandemic and me being here, I know they did have payment plans, and we stopped those specifically because we had such a difficult time actually getting people to pay those. We had thousands of dollars that we were still working on through COVID that we had time to actually examine it, and it was all because of payment plans, and people would do deposits and just constantly getting, weekly, monthly. It was very staff intensive, and then if people weren't paying, they were still staying. So CARP specifically, we just had very high balances that were outstanding. So it was during that time when it was decided not to do payment plans across the board. Lots of rentals, things like that. So it was changed so that we had it across the board. And then in terms of the excursion fees being built in, completely understand what you're saying. From my perspective, I already know and I've heard from the community that they, want the cost to stay low, and this is an option to do that. If we do, build in, anything that we're going to add from the fee study, and then if we add in any excursion costs to that, I think that that would maybe put it out of reach of some people where they could still go have a great summer and then maybe not go to all the excursions. But then we are still looking at that subsidy. So it could be for excursions as well as, camp itself to try to help that. Because I completely understand what you're saying.
And then that way they could pay the excursion fee at the week of rather than have to pay it up front.
Yeah. So then, as Ted was mentioning, they could pay excursion fee when it comes and not all at the beginning, too. So, but I did take all the notes, so we'll be looking at them.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with Commissioner Bond, because the vice chair gets the last word. Well, you get the second to last.
So I was curious, I have no experience with these camps because quite frankly, when my daughter was young, we didn't have the money to put our kids in camp and put her in camp. So we just didn't do that. But the best we got were the dance classes. So why only 100 kids? Is it because of the space that we have allocated at the parks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we base off the maximum that the fire department gives us.
Okay. And is there a reason why we can't use like Sid Cronenthal or Fox Hills or?
So Fox Hills doesn't have a building that
Okay.
they could go inside, but SK and Culver West, they have very popular contract preschools that are in there year-round in those facilities, and we don't have additional rooms that we could add in those spaces. So that is why we we don't have it at those facilities.
So it also got me to thinking, although I know that there is summer school, but if there was any way to do, to work with the schools so as for us to be able to have camps on like Lynn Howe or even at Farragut. I don't know if that's possible or if they are full of schools or, I mean, full of summer school, or if we just haven't worked that out with them yet.
It isn't, so this past summer, we did have some difficulties because we had renters on the field during certain times. And the school, because they had summer school, didn't want anybody on the field, even in the summer, until noon. That wasn't something we had discussed ahead of time, and so we already had, they have YMCA programs, and we had renters that were already on the field. But it's definitely a conversation to have with the school district, but I know because they have school in session until at least 12, that's not what they would prefer.
And then I was going to bring up the refunds. There's no question, obviously, if we're having issues with people dropping a week ahead of time after they've taken up, they've signed up for every single session, then, and they probably knew enough in advance that they could have dropped sooner. There needs to be stiffer penalties with these refunds, because with the amount of people who want and are unable to sign up, it's unfair for those who aren't able to, and then just have someone drop out. Also the ActiveNet. Are there no other options than this horrible system? It's hard, even if you're good with computers and you've been working with them for years, it is, I mean, every single place that I go to, whether they use ActiveNet or not, every single, whether it's been like El Segundo, or you look at Santa Monica's, or even West Hollywood's, it's hard to navigate. And even when you know how to navigate it, it's still hard to find things. Are there no other options besides this dinosaur that seems like it was written in the 1990s?
So a couple things. One, there's a contract built in there, so we have to consider that. But two, registration software systems in themselves, there's a bunch of different options. I've worked for different agencies that have had all different types. The reason there's so many people that go with ActiveNet is because it is web-based, and it is easier than trying to have it all stored, in a system on site. That is very challenging in its own right. Again, like I stated, we would like to have trainings ahead of time for some of our bigger seasons, right? Summer in general, for parents to be able to learn and get a tutorial session on what it looks like and how to register. And, we can take questions and answers to try to make it easier. But it is a very large undertaking to switch systems and then train the entire staff. First, we have to train ourselves, and then in turn train everybody else. And then last tier is train all of the public. So while I understand it is quite the task to even look at that.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is that I swim with a master's team, and they actually have an app that you can download. I don't know if ActiveNet has that. And so I have downloaded the app onto my phone or my iPad, and I just go into the app, and you sign in specifically for your group, because it's obviously not just for this team. And then it brings you into who you are, and obviously all I'm signing up for is swimming. But it just makes me wonder, is that an option with ActiveNet? Because that might make it easier for parents. People are more accustomed to using apps and kind of making their way around the apps. Not that the web isn't, it's just it's yeah, it's very clunky. That's all I have to say. Just reminds me of stuff from like the 90s, maybe 2000s.
No, I understand. Francisca, do you know if ActiveNet has an app?
ActiveNet does have an app. They are revamping a few of their services. So it is something that we can definitely look into.
Yeah, I think that would, once you guys are trained on that, I think that might help a lot of people sign up for things, make it just more seamless. So, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Alexander.
Thank you very much. I'm going to echo some of the comments that I heard from my fellow commissioners. The first one having to do with the refund policy. I mean, I'm thinking back when I had my child, and I only had one, so I'm trying to envision now, as Commissioner Peters mentioned, juggling with multiple children. On the other hand, it does appear that some savvy parents have figured out ways to, for lack of a more polite way of saying this, game the system with respect to having a basic hold on these while they figure out what the rest of their vacation plans are. I really do think that we need to look at revamping the refund system, because it's clear until we have either some of these other spaces at the high school with the staffing to be able to fill it out, we've got great demand. So it's really not a fair situation to all the families as a whole to be having that happen. And, you know, sometimes we can take a carrot approach, and sometimes it has to be a little bit more of a stick approach to try to make these practices best for the whole universe of parents who are looking to get these children into these classes when we don't have enough staffing or spaces for them. I feel for that. I'm going to second the idea of, I think it's great to have the ActiveNet training for using the system. It would be great if they had an app. I know that when I need to reserve a court at my club, I can either do it on the web or I can do it with an app. But then I was thinking about what you said about the 7 a.m. At the moment time when people will register. If someone doesn't have access to a computer, I know that's hard to think about, but if they don't have an app like on their phone, they might need to have a computer. But if they don't have a computer at their home, then where might they be using it? They might be using it at a library, but most of the libraries are not open at 7. So I don't know what universe of people that have children that might want to be using these programs that would be affected by that, but that's just maybe something to keep in mind. I'm trying to understand a little something. You, I believe, said that the CARP parents complained because their programming does not extend over into the summertime for these programs, correct?
Correct.
And on the other hand, there are these preschools that are at Culver West and SK that extend through the entirety of the year. So how are these two different? Why are those preschools allowed to go all year and the CARP ones don't? I'm trying to understand, you know, I'm just trying to understand the equity for all the different universe of parents that are navigating.
So those are contracted preschools. CARP is an after-school, and camp is specifically summer camp. So they are very different programs.
Right.
It's not, the CARP priority registration doesn't have anything to do with the preschools. They register their own way as it comes up. So they're different things, unless I'm missing what you're
No,
saying.
I guess what I'm getting to is, okay, maybe the underlying issue is, why do we have a year-long contract for these preschool programs when we are having issues of providing space for other programs for these summer camps? Why would we be doing that? And how long are these contracts for?
So they're contract classes, so they go sessions, but they're also for the younger ages. So for the amount of parents that also need, you know, somewhere for the little ones to go, that's the programs for them. We don't offer any programs like that in-house, which is why those programs are so important.
Okay. Also, regarding the potential of a separate fee for the excursions and also the issue of fees in general for this program or any of the programs. I think I recall asking a question at one meeting regarding when the last time the fees were adjusted for the department. And I know, again, it's very expensive to live in Southern California. It's even more expensive when you have a lot of children. But as I recall, I'm not even going to mention the number of years, but there's been a number of years that the fees have not been adjusted because of fee studies. That is correct, yes? Yeah, okay, so.
Oh, I can talk.
But as to whether the excursion ones should be built into it or not, I think probably the department has some level of control over its own costs, which will then be borne out by what you're going to charge for the program, whereas the excursion part, we don't have control over it. You know, if Magic Mountain's going to charge what Magic Mountain does, I mean, maybe we get, you know, group rate or something like that, which helps. So you might want to keep that in mind when you make the decision as to whether to fold the excursion fees in or have them as a separate pull-out piece. And my last question had to do with the payment plans that you said were in existence before you started, some number of years ago, I believe you said. Those payment plans and the following up of it are done in PRCS and not the finance department. Is that what I was hearing?
Correct.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed.
I just had a couple of questions for my clarification. So registration is by week or is it for the entire summer?
By week.
Okay, so it is by week, and then, so the people who registered, they just go every week. Okay, got it. Okay, that was just clarification for me. I think the ActiveNet training idea is great. Probably a better way to go about doing it is putting some videos together so that anybody can access it at any time. So if they miss your training class, you know, they still have an opportunity to learn how to do it. You might break it out into a couple different sections because people's attention spans are short these days. So, you know, keep it TikTok level, you know, and a few of those, and people will be like, okay, I can get through that. That's a recommendation for me. I'm surprised you're mentioning Blanco as a potential site because there is that preschool there that I know that operates, or are they not there anymore?
They're not there anymore.
Aha, okay. Well, that space is pretty tiny, with 1-2 bathrooms. One bathroom, that's what I thought. So I applaud investigating it. I'm not holding out a lot of hope that you're gonna be able to pull that one off. I know one of our previous commissioners used to rave about every single park used to have a summer program, but that's before climate change, and I don't think we can really afford to have kids hanging out outside the whole time anymore. But I at least from my perusal of a lot of the correspondence that we got, like everybody just wants more access, and I completely understand that. But I also understand the physical constraints that we have. So I sympathize with the parents who can't get in. And I know you guys are trying to figure out any way we can expand, but I think with the facilities we have, I think we're kind of stuck at where we're at right now. I guess, you mentioned about breaking out the excursion costs. In my experience with camps, I always paid separately for excursion costs. As for the poor kids who couldn't go, I was one of those poor kids who couldn't go. And it did suck, but I grew from it and I managed, right? Yeah, so I appreciate that. And, if that's one way to try to manage the costs related to this, I'm certainly not opposed to that. The one question I did have is because for the kids who don't go, they still need supervision. So how would that affect your staffing if, let's say, 2 kids can't go on the excursion and you have a 12-to-1 ratio? Do you get extra staff for that day to come sit with them back at base camp? Something to think
Yes.
about, yeah. So I don't know how that would affect staffing, which is clearly already a challenge. So that's just something to think about, that I came up with. And the kind of last comment I had was just the timing for the sign up. So 7 a.m. would have been great. I used to sign up, I'd have to sit at my computer at 11:59 at night, waiting for the midnight flip over so I could sign up my kids for camp. So again, I don't think that's the solution, right? And we do need to try to find, maybe there's a better time window for that to happen, but I'm like, man, I would have killed for a 7 a.m. sign-in time. But yeah, so obviously, you guys are looking into some more, and we'll see, but yeah, again, that still won't solve the real problem, which is we just can't accommodate more spaces. That is the fundamental problem, because we just don't have the space. I mean, even if you could get the people, we don't have the space, right? So, that's kind of, I see the kind of core issue we've got. We just can't escape, is we just can't actually physically host any more than what we've got. But, if we get some new buildings built because we had the Parks Master Plan, then that could change, right?
Yes.
All right, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm really appreciate all of the commission colleagues here coming up with, I think a lot of us have sort of this shared vision, as you do, about how we can make all of this work, and a lot of really good questions and ideas. I want to follow up on starting with the building situation. So in my mind, the building on Washington that was the prior Reading gun store needs to be given to PRCS or assigned for these kinds of programs. It's right there, right next to the park. This is a great opportunity to, sort of leverage the importance of the need for that building to be converted into space that is to be used by this department. That's one thing. I have, one of the first comments I want to make is that all 5 of the e-comments we got were about parks, and as Commissioner Mohammed mentioned, they are all very concerned about the opportunities for their kids to be able to be involved, with a lot of frustration that these programs are filling up within 6 minutes, with the understanding of why we have these limits and constraints. But the 12-to-1 ratio for camps and the 10-to-1 ratio for swimming, is that an industry standard, or is that imposed by some particular policy?
It's an industry standard.
Okay.
If you look at, say, schools, it's 18-to-1 for elementary and up, but it is pretty standard across our industry.
Is there any possibility that that could be slightly adjusted, or utilize additional student assistance to help balance out any additional numbers?
It isn't something that we've looked at. It's something that we can look at. I know from my experience, it's never been larger than that. It is a safety concern. We are hoping to have a counselor and training program next summer. We don't know how many kids we would get or what times they would be able to be there. So it's not that we can necessarily depend on having extra people per group, because our camp is also split up into groups. So it's something that I can do some research on. But sitting here, I don't know that I would be comfortable having a higher ratio with the safety concerns.
I understand that. I'm just picturing all of these young teens or teenage level students who are so excited to be, helping the, like you said, the counselor in training kind of program, being able to spend some of their time doing those kinds of programs and assisting so that maybe the ratio could be expanded, or we can get more kids in.
And some of our hard part is, there are times, depending on who those counselor in trainings are, sometimes they have to be included in our 12-to-1 ratio.
Yeah,
So,
yes, understandable, yes, safety first, I do understand that. So the contract classes that are using up space at vets and some of these other places, and you mentioned that those are mostly for very young children. Are all of them for young children, these contract classes during those times in the summer?
No. So the contract classes, the preschool classes at SK and Culver West are specific to that age group. Most of the summer programs at vets in the summer, as I said, are the same age, 5 to 12. So the same age of the camp that we're running.
And those contract camps that are not city camps, they're contract camps, are those attendees exclusively residents, or are they open to everyone?
Their contract classes are open to everyone.
Okay, because, I mean, I may sound, I don't know, I just don't, I would really love to be able to see us using our facilities for our programs, to expand our programs, to use our facilities for our residents and the people who want to use our programs. And I understand contract classes. We had a fantastic presentation on them a couple of meetings ago, and that was really, really helpful. It just gets me when we get, these emails.
So I mean, I would add that I don't necessarily look at them. First of all, it is our program because it's our contract class. So a portion of the revenue generated from that comes to the department. So it is our program.
Oh, okay.
It's run by a contractor, but it's through our contract class program. So there's the revenue sharing. So we're getting 30% of all the revenue from that. But we don't have to find staff and all those things that go along with that as well. And they're kind of specialty too. They're creating a niche specialty. The one is mostly geared around sports. That's the YSE is sports. And then the other one, is the theater drama one. So these are like specialty ones that are also filling up. So they're providing the same to the same people. They're just, it's a different person providing it. But I would say those classes kind of help fill in gaps around what we have, and it is our program.
But those classes also charge more than your Just for
Yeah, I
Kids
think they
camp.
are. Yeah, they are a little bit more, yeah.
So they're filling gaps, but they're also filling space.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate that. I agree with the refund issue. That time frame needs to be closed up so that, that would be so frustrating, I'm sure, on staff's part as well as for the people who are sitting on the waiting list. What percentage of the wait list people actually get to get into camp? Or if you can even give a percentage?
This past summer, I would say 15%.
Okay. Have you considered, in terms of space, using other locations that are privately operated or in around Culver City, like churches or other, even, I don't know about private schools, or just other buildings, other locations that have space that could be used?
We haven't. I think that there's some liability issues there that we would need to explore. And in addition, I'm assuming that, we would have to pay a cost and then provide insurance for that as well, similar to what we expect people to come in and provide for us.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure, I know you've just thought of every possible thing, but with the payment plan issue, is there any reason why you can't have a payment plan but require auto pay? So the payments automatically come out of
So we've had, so they don't actually automatically come out. So.
Can they?
Yeah. So we set it up. So in the past, at least, we'll give 2020 as an example. We did set it up, but then parents just turn it off. So it's not, we can set it up at the beginning, but they always have the ability to turn that off
Yeah,
because it is their credit card.
right.
And so we can't mandate that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think I've covered everything, but I have one more. So I would encourage the city to consider approaching local service clubs to subsidize the excursion fees for those children who are not able to go. The 3 primary service clubs in Culver City, Elks, Exchange Club, and Rotary, all have in their mission and their objectives to provide special programs and special assistance to especially children in need. So I would think that there might be an opportunity there so that everybody can go to the zoo and not be left behind. So
Thank you for that.
I encourage you to look into that. I think that's it. That's all I had. Was there anything else that popped up for anybody before we go on?
Just in terms of creative thinking of spaces, there will be the new space at the Vende that is supposed to be some kind of working with the community, blah, 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 blah. So, again, something to consider looking into.
Also on that same one, I wonder if there isn't something with the library, whether they have a classroom, because I don't know. But that at least then would also, that's also close to the parks. And so that would be an easy one to walk over, either to Lindbergh or to Betts, to go to outdoor stuff and then like walk back. I don't know if they have like a classroom
They
space or
do.
something.
They have a room that's just, when you go in and you turn to the left, there's a room on the left side. And it's a good-sized room. You could probably put about 30 people in there.
Oh, easy, yeah, it's pretty large. That was our headquarters when they were redoing the garden.
Yeah.
All right, when you walk in, it's to the left. I mean, we could ask, my guess is they probably use that for their own programming, but, I mean, something we could ask about.
Okay, thank you very much. We need to receive and file that report, please.
Can I just add one thing?
Oh,
One more
certainly,
thing? So
absolutely.
you mentioned the gun store. I just wanted to let you know that the city has started taking feedback and input on that. I know we were given flyers, that we put flyers up. There's a QR code, so you can go in and there's, taking surveys and giving feedback. So I just wanted, because you had mentioned that, so just wanted to throw that out there.
So everybody listening, please give your feedback. Okay, great.
If I recall correctly, and I think I was gone after that, but we were discussing, and I think we took an action as this body to sort of, put a placeholder on that, and
Yes,
I
we did.
think, I don't know if it was you, Chair, or Commissioner Mohammed, when he was chair, actually appeared before the council and did that, so maybe we
That's
need to
correct.
pull up that and remind them, or show up again, or do something else, but I seem to recall that we did that, yes.
Yeah, Commissioner Mohammed was chair at the time. I was vice chair, and he was not available to go to that particular meeting. So I did, and I made some comments in that regard. So yes, thank you. Okay, All right, it looks like we have a motion and a second to receive and file the report on the summer camp programs and registration.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Bond, seconded by Commissioner Peters, to receive and file the report regarding the Culver City Summer Camp programming and registration. And you may start voting. And all votes are in, and that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Great information. Okay, item A2, we have receipt and filing of the report regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department's Fiesta La Bayona.
Okay, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Happy to just give you this report on the 2024 Fiesta La Bayona. So we'll get started with the agenda. So just a couple of things I'm going to run through really quick. The new features, some carnival rides and games, sensory area, aquacade, entertainment, security, vendors, bike valet, volunteers, our waste management partner, support from other city departments, the revenue, and then some of the event feedback that we got. So just a couple of the new features. If you came out, you saw in the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see the metal detectors and some of the security fencing that was implemented this year. In the upper right, if you look right in the middle on the very top, I think that was one of their new rides that they brought this year. It was kind of more of an extreme ride. They also brought, it's not in the picture there, but there was like a teddy bear ride that you saw. They had a couple, I think 2 or 3 new rides this year that they brought to our carnival, so that was nice. We had a sensory area that was on the tennis courts that I'll be talking a little bit more about a little bit later. And then in the bottom right corner, you might have noticed that our tent was different this year. We had a new upgraded tent that our vendor brought out for us this year to show us. I didn't see last year's tent, but this year's tent definitely looked really nice. And the feedback I heard was that this year's tent was much, much better with like fewer support poles and just kind of more open space. So those are just some of the new features from this year. Also, just more along the lines of the carnival rides and games, Danny had a good idea this year and was actually able to, if you came previous years, you might have noticed like a bunch of RVs and stuff lined up on the back side of the park. We were actually able to move them over to the parking lot over by the Venda. And that kind of opened up more space and allowed us to create more space. It wasn't as cramped. We were able to kind of really separate the little kid rides on one side and then all the older kid rides on the other side. So that was kind of a nice new thing for this year. Another new thing that we tried this year was a sensory area. It was on the tennis court. If you saw it, you might have came by. It was a safe place for kids of all abilities to play with sensory toys, also kind of away from all the excitement, everything that's going on, to kind of give kids a break from that if they needed that. They had some sand, Play-Doh, and dress up and more. And it was open on Saturdays and Sundays from 11 to 5. We had our Aquacade this year. We had over 400 people come by the pool. We actually got some feedback. A lot of people were excited that the pool was open during the fiesta and took advantage of that. We had a splash and dive movie on Friday night. We showed Lilo and Stitch. And that was on Friday night. We had inner tube fun, inflatable obstacle courses, which you can see in some of the photos. The Aquacade was open Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 4. Next one. Okay, entertainment. We got a lot of really good feedback on the entertainment this year. We had one DJ. It was the Jazz Hands for Autism. They were in partnership with a local Culver City nonprofit serving people with disabilities. We had one choir, the Angel City Chorale, Culver City Performing Arts Grants recipient in partnership with Cultural Affairs. We had one children performer. We had 5 community dance lessons. I don't know if any of you, those seemed really popular. Some people were getting lessons on different styles of dancing. We had seven different dance groups perform, and then we had 11 different bands. A lot of entertainment going on, a lot of really good entertainment. All right, big one here, security. So if you didn't notice, we had a fence around the park this year. We had managed entrances and exits. We had a lot of security personnel. So we added a question, and I just wanted to share this part because I feel it was significant. We had a question on the survey. We did get, I want to say 138 surveys. I'll be talking more about the surveys in a minute, but we had 138 responses. People that filled out the surveys, and we asked them to please rate your opinion of the following statements. The increased security measures, fencing, bag checks, et cetera, made me feel safe while at the event. And you can see here, the strongly agree, well, I mean, maybe you can see, I can't see. It's, the strongly agree was like 37%?
Yeah, 37.
Yeah, about 37, almost 38%. Agree was another 33%. So total, you're looking at say, almost 70%, either strongly agreed or agreed. We did have some vocal people that strongly disagreed and disagreed. And in the survey, it was about 15%, maybe 14%. And then we had some that neither agreed nor disagreed, 13%. And I can also say just, walking around and talking to some of the people, most of the feedback I heard was positive while I was sitting at the counter, at the table, the city table. Most of the feedback I got when I talked to people about it was positive. I did have a couple of people that were, adamant that this, was destroying the community feel of the event. But the majority of people I spoke to and then what we got in the survey gave us a positive feedback on the added security. As far as the cost goes, the security personnel was the added security and personnel because we would have to have security overnight the week of before up to the carnival anyways. I came and picked them up and pulled them away. They also gave us the wands. They gave us the tables, the little trays, like they set up everything for us. It was like white glove treatment for the metal detectors. And then the fencing around the park was about $13,316 for all the fencing. So yeah, that's the security portion that I have. Oh, but we do feel like next year, we can probably trim that back a little bit. I don't know that we needed that many metal detectors. I don't think we ever really had a line that backed up. So we can probably cut that down a little bit when we'll be able to cut down the staff a little bit as well too. So I don't know that we'd have to spend that much next year. We can probably trim that back quite a bit. Okay, just a breakdown of our food vendors. We had one, the Beer and Wine Garden. We had 12 food trucks. We had 14 food booths. And then we had a total of 27 food vendors altogether. I know the ice cream ones were very popular. Our community vendors, we had 17 non-food nonprofits. We had 11 non-food commercial. So a total of 28 non-food vendors and booths at the event. The bike valet, again, we partnered with Bike Culver City. As you can see there, they staffed the entire weekend. We supplemented with some volunteers, but they handled the vast majority of it. They checked in over 600 bikes this year over the weekend. And we did change the location up a little bit this year. I feel like they were a little bit more visible. They were right there at the front at the main entrance, right when you walk in. Seemed pretty convenient. I think a lot of people took advantage of the bike valet. It was very busy from what I saw. Volunteers, we could not do this event without volunteers. We had 89 volunteers that assisted with the event. Some of the tasks that they did, they helped with general fiesta help. They helped with some of the entrances. Some of them were kind of standing on the outside directing people where the entrances were because you couldn't just walk in wherever you wanted. They helped with the bike valet, and then they were supporting with the entertainment tent and the parking. Yeah, it's volunteers. Our waste management partners, again, MasterCore and Angie Zavala, their supervisor, they were great. They came out, they helped keep the park clean, going through, picking up all the trash. I rarely saw trash on the ground for very long, if ever. And they did a great job of just sorting everything out, keeping everything sorted, putting the trash in the correct bins, and making sure that we were in compliance with all of that stuff. So it was great to have MasterCore out there helping with that. Some support from city departments. We had, obviously, the city manager's office and the city council were there, the fire department, Public Works and EPO, the planning department, police. We had quite a few departments. I know Owen came out there too. They weren't technically a city department, but they were there for us. And if you saw them while they were there, they were packed. They had a lot of people coming by. We got a lot of good feedback from there. Okay, revenue. So if you look at our 2024 revenue, so the Carnival wristband revenue was down from last year. It was $96,569. We have our food vendors, non-food vendors, nonprofit, and the beer and wine garden are cut from that. So you can see the overall revenue is about $123,085. Last year was $139,901. Obviously, the biggest difference being the Carnival wristband prices. I didn't include it in the presentation, but I have it here. But just so you're aware, a lot of the feedback that we got last year was how expensive the event was. And it's interesting, we got a lot of that same feedback this year, and the price this year was actually lower than last year, which I don't know that you could say that about anything else that you go buy at the store. I want to say, so the pricing last year, if you bought the pre-sale ticket, was either $38 or $40, depending if you bought it directly from the Carnival vendor or from us on ActiveNet. So it was either $38 or $40. This year it was $38. So it was either the same or lower. Actually, it was lower this year because 38 was the total. It was $35 plus a $3 surcharge. It was 38. Last year, if you bought it from the Carnival, it was 40. And then same with the day of tickets. Last year was $47. This year was 45. So we actually had the price, and so that was a cost that we had to kind of incurred in order to try to meet the complaints from last year. Also, if they bought individual tickets, not wristbands or credits, I think they called them credits, for the rides, they were requiring fewer credits for the rides this year as opposed to last year. So you didn't have to buy as many credits to go on the same amount of rides as last year. So we did what we could on our end to try to help keep the cost down, yet we still received some feedback regarding the cost and the expense. So I will say that that's a challenge for us because, like I said, everything's going up. The costs for everything are going up. The costs for the tents, the bathrooms, not the added stuff, but just the same stuff we do every year. The costs for all those things are going up. Just like everything at the supermarket, everything that we have to buy for this event, all the prices are going up. And so that's going to continue to be a challenge. It's something we'll have to be looking at again next year. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as the revenue is concerned. Okay, event feedback, 134, I thought it was more. Oh, well, so 134 surveys were received. These were just a couple of the things that people made comments. The ride and game prices were a bit high. We got a couple of those. I loved having the pool open. I love the live music. The Vinyl Gypsies were amazing. I would love more arts and craft vendor booths. What an amazing upgrade. Good job. I like the beer garden and the nonprofit booths while the kids enjoy the carnival. I did not like the event being in August and being pretty warm. We couldn't get past the entrance because of our dogs. I felt safe with all the staff and security. Not enough seating for eating food. We had to sit on the ground. I did see some of that. And then fun for the family. This wasn't everything, but these are just some of the ones that we saw, maybe more than one of the same type of comments, so we thought we'd share them. And then the staff thanks you for an amazing fiesta. And also I want to kind of just give a shout out to Gabriela Velasquez, who works in our office. She did a great job of pulling all this together for me, working with Adam and the rest of the team. And she just did an amazing job putting this together. And then, so I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And we thank you for an amazing fiesta. So, okay, any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Bond.
So there are a couple things. I have noticed over the years, we used to have a lot of vendor booths. It used to be almost like a crafts fair in there. And we could walk through there, and it would take me probably an hour or more just to go through all of the booths, because there were so many interesting things to look at. And in recent years, it feels like there's almost nothing there. So the booths used to almost fill up the space from where the seats are for the eating, and all the way across, and it was just row after row. I mean, it seemed like there were at least 4 rows there of booth after booth after booth that you could go in and just browse and buy from. And I really miss that, because as an adult, the rides are no longer an appeal to me. So I enjoy going in and looking at what the local artisans have to offer. So I'm kind of curious what happened with that? Because it was starting to decrease before the pandemic. It hasn't been robust like it was, say, 10 years ago.
So I wasn't here 10 years ago, but in my time, obviously, it has been more COVID. Things definitely pulled back. From last year to this year, we decreased by 8. The layout may make it feel like there was definitely more. Again, pre-pandemic, there might have been significantly more. I can tell you, even from the people that we had on the wait list, none of them were crafts or, artisan. Because I would love to have a lot more artisan feel. We didn't get that at least the last 2 to 3 years. We haven't had an abundance. We've had more people wanting to get the word out for their either nonprofit or school or, whatever they were doing. But we definitely didn't see as many artisans at all.
I'm wondering if there's anything that we could do to encourage that, because Culver City really has been for a long time a city of various different types of arts, and one would think that that's something that we'd want to encourage to have at our fiesta, a celebration that we have every year.
I will say that one thing that I believe this commission is already aware of is that council did put forth what the requirements were. And if you were a vendor in the previous year, you do have priority. So there are only a certain amount of spots available, just as an FYI and a reminder to the commission for this point. But I do agree that I would love to see more artisans.
So what I would say is if you have the information, I would go back and look about 10 years ago, because there were a lot more booths. And it's not just how it's set up. There were just a lot more booths to go through. You'd have a row of 7 or 8 booths, and then another, and then they were back to back. And you'd have maybe 3 or 4 rows of those. So you're looking at 32 booths. I don't know how many booths we had this year, but it just seemed like there were maybe
Said
20.
there was 28.
28,
And that's not counting the city booths.
okay.
Then there was
So-
like 8 or so of those too.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I want to say that it just felt like there were more. Maybe because the booths were larger, they had more space. I don't know, maybe they were spread out.
Yeah, I think the layout definitely plays into it, because we did add rides along that back fence. So we tried to create the kiddie area, and it's definitely pushed over the past 2 years into that. And we had additional food trucks that kind of wrapped around more into the area. So that does confine more. But I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's more confining of a space.
So maybe you remember as well, but Adam was just sharing with me that the layout was, I guess, a lot different before that. The entertainment was like in the parking lot.
Yeah,
And so the whole grass field, there was no entertainment in there. That was all booths, so.
the entertainment was over by the, playground.
Yeah, just to clarify, it was right by the parking lot, not in it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was like
Right,
trying
but
to
over
slide
by,
it.
so over by the playground and that
Right.
part over there.
Yeah, it
And
used to be
so-
over there, which left a lot
And the
larger
booths
space.
were where the entertainment tent is now.
Yeah,
So it did give the booths more of a walkable feel because they just had more longer rows to deal with, whereas now we're running into like the playground area and food booths and things. So there is a more compact space for them.
The only other thing that I would talk about is I do agree that we need more seating. Because when we went and picked up some food, there was frequently no place to sit. So it's just, whether you even, I think you could even add a couple of tents over by the food trucks so that it's not just by the stage. Not that I don't enjoy being by the stage, but if you want to talk to somebody, it's difficult to have a conversation.
I think another one, a complaint that I heard somewhat frequently that weekend was that people would come, put all their stuff down on tables and chairs, and then leave. And so and I saw it, and honestly, I don't know how to combat that at this moment, but I did see it happening a lot, so I think that that was part of the challenge, and then they would put bags on chairs. So there were a lot of times where there was just a lot of open space, but bags on them. So that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, and people would think that they were taken, so they wouldn't, I don't know, makes you want to say, okay, we're going to pick those up and put them in the lost and found if you're not watching them. I don't know, do we have a lost and found? So maybe put a sign up next year saying if you leave your possessions here and there's nobody to watch them, you can find them in the lost and found.
You sure we wouldn't want to take them away to be disposed of properly by explosive ordinance or something like that? Just-
No, I'm only, I mean, if you're going there and people are looking for some place to sit and then people are leaving their bags there the entire day, then that's similar to someone signing up for all of the camps and not leaving space for everybody to use. So maybe we have a bag check. Offer a bag check, but knowing that they leave it there at their own risk, but they can check their bags. I mean, it's just an offer. If they feel like that feels like a safe place, I don't know why anybody would leave their bags somewhere.
Well, they're saving the table.
Yeah, they want to save their spots.
Yeah.
for
Have a
whenever they wanna
lottery
come
for
and
the
go.
Then have somebody sit there, rather than leaving their,
Just
anyway. That's it for me. Thanks. By the way, we enjoyed the fiesta. We had fun. You guys did a great job.
thank you. Yes, Commissioner Peters.
Yeah, once again, Fiesta was lovely. We were there. I was there with one of my children all 3 days. She would prefer if we never left. And there were times where I couldn't take it any longer and we left. Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I admit that I was like, I don't know about these metal detectors. What's the lines going to be like? And there was never any line. And I think you're right. I think you could cut it probably by half and be just fine. I also think, as a parent, having the fence around is just really, in some ways, comforting because you know your kid can't run too far, basically, corral the children. And I did see people, because, you have kids who are runners and they run away. And, so I think the fence is really helpful. I didn't feel like the security presence felt heavy or anything. It didn't feel like anything beyond when you go to a concert or things like that. And so I thought that was fine.
And just to add on that, one thing that's super helpful for us is if there is a lost child, it is an immediate lockdown for all exits. And obviously, we've never had that capability before. So for us as well, it does give a sense of security, knowing as soon as we make that call, everything shuts down and security's looking and nobody's leaving.
Yes, I ran into that when I left, and I think I only had to wait 5 minutes, and then it was resolved, so it was no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was really helpful. I agree about the places to sit. And one thing that maybe it's just the way things are oriented, or I can't remember, like, whether the picnic tables are inside or outside of the fencing. But I do feel like we could make better use of the picnic shelter and the picnic areas as like, to try to point people there, and maybe even thinking about moving some of the food trucks over to that end and including the picnic areas in the fence. I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, the picnic area was inside the fence. The
Yeah.
entire park was inside the fence. We did the fence up against the sidewalk
That's
all the
what I
way around. And I did see people using the picnic area to hang out, to eat food. While their kids were on the playground, they were kind of sitting over there watching. We also had the Arts Foundation kind of over in that area as well. But I did see people taking advantage of the picnic area for
But maybe
sitting
it's
down
just
to
worth
eat.
like, and I was thinking about this a little bit more because I ran into somebody who was like, oh, I didn't even know the pool was open. And I admit, I didn't even know that we had a sensory area. So maybe just like a little bit more signage would be helpful.
Yeah, we had talked about that afterwards. About that, I think that was one of the things we talked about for improving the sensory area. And it was a new thing too, so.
I just think that would be, or maybe adding another tent with seating somewhere where it's quieter again. So either people could talk or, I don't know, all the noise gets to me after a little while, but I'm old, so that's okay. But I thought it in general was really great. I think the only complaint my kids had is that at Aquacade, you guys ran out of syrup for the slushies, and there was some feelings about that, but that's all right. That's
More syrup for the.
more syrup for the slushies. And in general, I have to say, because I'm not trying to mention it, we really loved all the sort of Aquacade type events this summer. And the snow cone machine is like double thumbs up and is amazing. So I'll just add that.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Alexander.
I'll just be another echo for if there's a way that we can incorporate more seating, especially, again, for people who are ability challenged. They would probably like to sit with their meal. I'm not yet ability challenged, but I often would rather be able to sit. I mean, my solution to it was either A, go into the beer garden where I'm not sitting, but at least I have a place to put my little plate, or B, find somebody that I knew in one of the non-food booths who let me sit there and eat my food. So that was my solution for that. I had a question about, thank you very much for breaking out the revenue. I think that that's very helpful for the community to understand. And I'm not sure I was writing down all the numbers correctly. I think I got them in terms of how much the extra security costs, but is there kind of like a final, maybe not yet, final over-under in terms of how much it costs to put this on relative to the revenues, and how you feel that impacts, the totality of the budget in the department?
So you want to know how much the security cost or the overall cost?
No, yeah, I mean, are we in the black, are we in the red, are we in the red as much as we thought based on that additional security, and like, is this going to affect any of the other programming, or will absorb it, or?
So basically gross and net.
Oh, for this year?
Yeah.
So this year, the total expenses was $212,604, and the revenue was $123,085. So the net loss was $89,519. And the additional security total was
I
around
think it's
48?
46. Or
Yeah,
48.
48.
46.
It was
Oh,
about 48
All right, 48.
was security.
Okay. Which I agree, you can probably, as Commissioner Peters made note of,
Yeah, we can probably.
cut down on the,
Is that included in the total cost of 212?
Yes.
604, the security
Yes,
is?
that
Okay.
was total for everything. Like I said, a lot of our other contractual things, lighting and tents and the restrooms and hand washing sinks, like all of those things, prices have gone up. We had 5-year contracts that expired after last year. And so
When you put
we had to
together
renew
the
them all.
budget, I guess you assume that it's going to go into the red by a certain amount, and that's just considered the city's absorbed, their department absorbed cost of putting on the event.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we'll be having some discussions regarding the cost this year.
Okay, that's good. And then I wanted to say that I keep liking the improvements of, experimenting with the layouts and the way that the flow works for people. I think that it's much improved from what I remember from prior years, so that's really very much appreciated. I don't know what to do about the community not understanding from one year to the next that the wristbands are actually less expensive. I think the families probably just have to come to a point that, is this the value added for like going to the community event? The kids want to do it, and it's not like, you got to get in the car and go all the way to Six Flags Magic Mountain. True, they have like, rides that we could never possibly put in here, but this gives some kind of a relief valve for that kind of thing for especially the kids in the community. Do you have a sense for the sort of participation levels at various groupings of age? Has that changed at all based on the things over the years or not? Just a general feel. I know you don't do a head count, but I'm just curious.
No, we seem, if anything, we did notice more little kids, at least from the carnival perspective, that were on the rides, but I think it's just because they could see them more clearly based on where the layout was. I do feel like our teen numbers continue to grow, and those are the only two things that I saw personally and what the carnival mentioned.
And one final comment, I was approached by someone who is a member of the Arts Foundation, and I have no idea what went on in terms of, when they applied for their booth or anything like that, but I understand they were not pleased where at least they were originally put when you were talking. They felt like they were kind of like put off to the side there, and I don't know what we can do about that relative to the rules that we have for all the vendors. On the other hand, it seems like the Art Foundation is a little bit closer to being, an arm of the city, and I'm sure that the Cultural Affairs Commission certainly thinks of them that way. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I just said, okay, I didn't have any words for them other than, I would bring it up when we had the review, so.
I had talked to them at the event.
And they were fine where they were? Maybe that was just one person's voice.
We moved them. They moved over closer to like on the other side of the picnic shelter.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think it kind of competed with our sensory area because they were right outside the door to the sensory area. But, so yeah, I had spoken with them.
Okay. Thank you. That's all for me. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of the work and all of the breakdown of costs and revenue is also very helpful. So for example, the non-food, nonprofit vendors, they give a percentage of their revenue that they generate in their booths to the city, or how does?
No, they pay for the booth up front.
Oh, these are revenues from the payments of the booth, not from
Yeah,
what.
that's for
okay.
them rent, that's for them basically paying for the booth to be there.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Was there a printed brochure or map this year? Because I never saw one, and I never saw it. And so it just wasn't prominent enough. Not that because I didn't see it, it wasn't prominent enough, but it would have been helpful perhaps to have them at the Beer and Wine Garden, because people kept asking people at the Beer and Wine Garden, where is this? Where are the ticket sales? Where's the, where's the arts thing? Where's the sensory? Because even though we kept pointing them to the sort of the information booth that the city had, they'll go to the first easiest access place. Sorry I missed that, because that would have been very helpful to have. Maybe that's something that could have been given to people when they came in through security, or some way to get that into people's. I know people probably also used an app, correct? There's a map at the, yeah. So, I don't know, maybe that's just me, old school.
There was a lot of maps on like A-frames all throughout the park.
Okay, all right, so.
Which
yeah.
I totally did not see.
Okay. So, just a comment. And then the only comments I heard from a few people about the fencing was that because it was green, it didn't allow people on the outside to actually see what was going on the inside, to sort of have an experience of how exciting it all was. So, was there a reason that the fencing had that shade component?
I think aesthetically it looked better. I mean, we had really big lit up rides that I would hope people
Yeah,
could see over the
right.
fence, and the big tent was taller than the thing. I mean,
And many
but
screaming teenagers.
I mean,
many
I
screaming.
think,
Hear from
I
my
think one of the
house.
things I kind of liked about it was when you were inside there, it's almost kind of like, because that was like that, like you felt like you were in your own like area. You weren't necessarily somewhere, but it was mostly just for aesthetics. I think just having a chain link fence, and then it helps provide a little bit more security too. Like people aren't able to kind of see or do something nefarious. Makes it a little harder to like climb the fence because there's that security screen on the outside. So it was
Okay,
mostly that.
okay. Just had a couple
But I think
comments.
mostly it was aesthetics, really.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's all I have too. So can we have a motion to receive and file this item? Thank you so much. It was really, really a wonderful event. I think we're all in agreement on that.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Alexander, seconded by Commissioner Bond, to receive and file the report regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department Fiesta La Bayona. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and that passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, A3, we have receipt and filing of the report regarding the comparative analysis of various cities' approach to enrichment class instructional services.
Okay, so I will be giving a report on the comparative analysis on the contract instructor recruitment process for quite a few cities. At the last commission meeting, it was requested for staff to go back and do some additional research, so we have that information for you this evening. So I won't go into every finite detail. I'd like to highlight the main differences between the cities in comparison to Culver City. So we reached out to 8 cities. 2 neighboring cities were unresponsive. We received responses from Inglewood, West Hollywood, LA County, Corona, La Mesa, and the city of Hawthorne. Each one of these cities all require a business license, live scan, first aid and CPR for their contract instructors. The city of Inglewood, they require a TB test, which is something that that's interesting because other cities do not require a TB test. The city of West Hollywood, they require extensive staff training as well as training in safety procedures. The LA County, with regards to their insurance requirements, for their lower risk classes, the insurance requirements are waived. They only apply insurance to their high-risk classes, such as their aquatics classes. LA County is, relatively huge, and they offer different types of parks and recreation services throughout the greater Los Angeles area. So they do have lower risk classes, but those insurance requirements are completely waived. There are some cities that require mandated reporter training and also some other specialized trainings. With regards to the insurance requirements itself, what we see across the board, it tends to be applicable where there is a 1 million commercial general liability requirement across the board, which is in alignment with the city of Culver City. Some cities do not require a full endorsements. This is something that we see can be an obstacle for some instructors because there is an added cost for those types of documents. In addition to that, there are, with regards to the application process itself, it does vary. For the city of West Hollywood, for example, there is a proposal process where if an instructor is interested, they would just submit a proposal. They would also just discuss with staff their knowledge and their abilities to offer the program. There are some that really look at assessing the risk first before even entertaining a conversation with the instructor. So there were different metrics across, and from what I can see, it does look like every city takes into consideration their community, the needs, the desires, but also the facility and the number of offerings that they have. There are some cities, such as the city of La Mesa, where it seemed to be that they were a bit more focused on the liability versus the offerings across the board, versus the city of Hawthorne. Their requirements were a bit more lenient with regards to their insurance and their permits. It was, from the research, it's literally if they can afford it, and if not, we can work with you. So in comparison with the city of Culver City, we do have some very stringent requirements compared to other neighboring cities and LA County. So city of Culver City requires full endorsements for all of our offerings. We have to have insurance. There are no insurance waivers. For with regards to the process of even executing a contract, it has to be signed off by our legal team, the city manager, the department head. There are some cities that do not have that process in place. It would stop at the director's level or the manager's level. And then also, with regards to recruitment itself, various cities have their own way of recruiting, but overall, what was consistent is just their marketing, whether it's in a brochure, some form of a newsletter. They also focused on the word of mouth and just evaluating their community to determine who they can outreach to when they have a gap in services. Lastly, what I want to mention with Culver City is, even though we have some insurance requirements that are clear, it's concise, and it's applicable across the board, oftentimes we do get recommendations to ask for other information regarding the insurance. So once we get an insurance certificate and the city risk manager would review it, oftentimes they would see a need for us to go back and just, confirm if there's something in place for that particular instructor. So I wanted to just provide this information so that you all can see that, yes, overall, we have neighboring cities. They do have a contract instructor recruitment process in place. And as I mentioned, it does appear that they do tailor their process to their community's needs, to their desires. And Culver City, we are definitely doing what we need to do to ensure that we are taking all procedures and precautions in place. So that pretty much concludes my summary of the research. I'm available if you all have any questions.
Thank you so much.
You're
Are there
welcome.
any questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Mohammed.
I just have one quick comment. So thanks for putting this matrix together. This is really helpful to kind of see the comparisons. My observation from this is, sure, we might have some slightly stricter requirements than some other jurisdictions, but generally we're in family. That's what this tells me, which is where we want to be. So I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Alexander?
I think I have a question that unfortunately can't be answered due to the tenure of the staff that's with us here. But I'm just kind of curious how we got to this space, and I think maybe I have a slightly different look on it, about it than Commissioner Mohammed just mentioned there, which is if other jurisdictions can have things stop at the let's say at the PRCS director level, what is the extra value added that we've got the city manager and the city attorney's office involved? It seems, I'm wondering what it is that they're doing. Do we have a perspective on what they're doing? I mean, you mentioned sometimes there's this crosstalk about, oh, they want like more information, but.
Sure. Yes, so from what I know, prior to the city kind of taking a deep dive with the insurance requirements, there were some things that were pretty much loosely done with contract instructors where you would just submit a certificate to show that you have insurance. And because the city had just so much happening with contracts and different things of that nature, there were some T's not crossed, some I's not dotted. So the city wanted to ensure that, we were doing our due diligence with regards to the level of insurance and the coverage. So there are some cities contingent upon their amenities, the number of people that they have in their programs, the type of offerings, they deem it necessary for the city attorney or for their city manager not to necessarily be involved in that process at that level. Whereas we are looking at consistency across the board. Not all contracts would require maybe the city manager's signature per se, but for certain contracts, that's part of our process. So in comparison with other cities, it's really just what the preference is, depending on their city and their leadership.
Oh, that's understood. I'm just hoping that we're getting the value added for having all of that. I can sort of understand we've got like the spectrum here where LA is allowing some, LA County is allowing some people maybe not to even have the insurance at all if they're considered the low risk. I think that's what you were saying.
Yes.
But then they're a huge county, so if something bad were to happen, it's much easier for them to absorb it financially, if you will, than somebody the size of Culver City. Or perhaps some of the other jurisdictions that you mentioned there have potentially more staff to be monitoring when the contractors are there, so there's less of the risk involved. So I'm guessing that this is how, I'm hoping, by looking at those different kind of things, this is how the city has reached its sweet spot in terms of the requirements there. At least I hope so. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bond.
I do question though, because a lot of our contracted, the contracted classes have been here for years. Is it necessary to actually go all the way up when you have people who have been proven to, you know what I'm saying? They've proven they've been here for maybe 10, 20 years with zero issues. To me, when I look at how overworked all of our staff is, I wonder why it would be necessary to take it that far up. Especially for certain classes that have been here, that they're just resigning.
Well, I think it's because, I mean, these are contracts that the city is basically creating a contract with this person, and so contracts can only be signed. They have to all be signed and reviewed by the director, the city manager, and the city attorney. So just as a matter of course, all contracts have to be signed that way. It's a lot of signing.
It seems a little excessive for some of the stuff, but.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for putting all of this together and taking the time to do it. Did you find it helpful to get a good finger on the pulse of what's going on in other cities to know that Culver City has got high standards?
I did find it helpful, and particularly for the recruitment process, because, that's something that as a department, we can definitely focus on, looking at how our recruitment mechanisms are compared to other cities and what we can do to adjust or modify to make it a bit more efficient. So that information was definitely helpful. And I cannot take all the credit. Dorian Jackson, our associate analyst, she conducted all of the research. I just had a lot of reading to do. So thank you, Dorian, for your contribution with this.
Thank you. Yeah, with regard to contracts, as I recall, when I retired from the city 2.5 years ago, the city required a contract for everyone providing a service who stepped foot on city property. And it does require a review from everyone. And of course, only certain dollar values have to go through up to council, or if they're executive level or administrative contracts, they can be at the city manager level. But while sometimes I feel like, the insurance and some of these requirements are a little excessive, at the same time, once that process got started all those years ago, and now it's just rote. It's almost like drinking water, I think, for staff now. I know it got to be that way for us too. And that was implemented, I think that was right after you left the city. Crystal, it was going from about 2 years before I left. So it's just what it is. And it does protect the city, and that's part of the responsibility of the city. So I think my only other question or my only other comment was that I think there would still be, you do show for instructor certifications certain additional training. I know that staff would have a good idea about any additional certifications that might be required. I'm not in any position to say what those might be, but it was good to know that the live scan, first aid, and CPR and a business license are all required. I think that's good. But I'm just saying that if there's any kind of program that comes up that the staff really does feel needs more, any kind of certification or some kind of safety or training, that I'm sure that you would make that determination on a case-by-case basis. So I'm glad to know that. I feel very confident in that with staff.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, so, okay, are there any other comments or anything? Great, really, really helpful information. Thank you very much. We already have a motion and a second to receive and file the report regarding the comparative analysis of various cities' approach to enrichment class instructional services. I'll say it for you, Adam.
I still have to repeat it, but thank you. So I have a motion by Vice Chair Alexander, seconded by Commissioner Peters, to receive and file the report regarding the comparative analysis of various cities' approach to enrichment class instructional services. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and that passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Item A4, we have moved into the receipt and filing of updates from members of the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Commission Ad hoc Subcommittee and representative appointments to outside associations and city committees. And I keep forgetting to ask if there are any public comments on any of these items.
I've been monitoring. You haven't had any public comments.
Good, I know that you'll just cut me off and say that you have some, just in case, so, thank you. Okay, so what do we have here? First, we have the Capper Briscom, California Association of Parks and Rec Commissioners and Board Members. Maggie Peters as delegate. Is there anything to report?
I think they might be defunct. So I've tried to get on their email list. I haven't tried emailing them, but I went to their website again today, and 6 months ago, the website existed. The website no longer exists.
Uh-oh.
So I will keep investigating this issue and see whether it is still a thing or whether it's gone defunct.
Well, they like to fill my inbox up, so they're not defunct. That much I can tell you for sure. Not sure why you're having any issues, so, yeah, I'll see if I can forward some of this to you. And maybe they have a better sign-up thing, I don't know. But
I'd appreciate
I'm getting
that.
all of it, so,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Uh-oh. So maybe they have changed their acronym and the website has been modified. Usually it would redirect. It would be an old one that they would hold on to that redirects. So can staff look into that to help us out with that, please?
Yes, staff can look into it and see whatever contacts we have and get you in touch with people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Peters. We also have the Culver City Senior Citizens Association Board of Directors, and that is Commissioner, Vice Chair Alexander and Commissioner Bond is the alternate.
I was absent for the last meeting, and I asked Commissioner Bond to step in for me.
So I attended last meeting, and for all of those who missed it, there was a very exciting raffle for people who attended. I don't remember how much it was, but I want to say it was like a $50 gift card to Ralph's. I did not win, which was okay because I tried to refuse the ticket. They talked about the finalizing the senior prom budget of 2024. Even though that already happened some time ago, they still had to finalize the budget. They talked about the staff changing from I can't even read what I wrote. Melanie will be in charge of youth sports camps, and Nancy Valcalva was promoted to senior center coordinator. They were also talking about the senior pool party and plunge, the friendship mixer, the vended trip registration, the Abilities Carnival that is this weekend, and that who's going to be there, asking for a certain amount of money for things. The registration of tech classes, and they're talking about changing the times for the tech classes and to make them longer. Then the board election, there are actually 3 board members that are termed out. There were some that were not going to run, one of whom was the board president, but because there are some issues that happened during COVID and they weren't able to address them and get them, or before COVID, something they weren't able to address, so he's going to run again. There are people that are going to run again. So in other words, there's 3 positions available for any of the public who are interested that are members of the senior center. And then, but be sure to read the criteria in order to even apply. They have finally gotten I think another ping pong table or something. They've been working on that for a while. Yeah, they're very excited about that. Because we hear a lot about that. It's kind of like the pickleball players of the senior club.
Brackets.
Yes. So they had 97 new members. They are over 3,000 members now, regular members. Yes, just that the ping pong table needs assembly. Oh, it was a $75 gift certificate to Ralph, So, and I think they're planning on doing raffles for every board meeting. So those of you who are interested, show up, you could win something. This is just trying to get more people to attend. They want more people in there to have more of a voice. And that was it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have some ad hoc subcommittees. We have the 2028 Summer Olympics Preparation Ad Hoc Subcommittee with Commissioner Mohammed and Vice Chair Alexander.
No updates.
So there hasn't been any discussion about the needs matrix that came to city council, or does staff know more about that?
That hasn't been flowed down for us at this point, but, so I assume there'll be some more discussion about that in the future, but nothing at this point.
Okay. Am I wrong? Didn't that go to council?
It did.
Okay.
It was, I believe, on consent.
I'm sorry.
I think it was on the consent calendar. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I will say that city manager's office has reached out and would like input on specific opportunities that they're considering for the parks during that time. So staff will be reaching out to this ad hoc subcommittee to start preparing things, catching them up to speed with what city manager's office has said. Also, this ad hoc subcommittee may need to agendize an item in the coming meetings based on how that meeting goes. So that is, from staff perspective, a very recent update.
Okay, but this ad hoc subcommittee is set and available and ready to interface with you when need be as for that item, and that's okay. Our structure is fine. Okay.
Yes, the structure is fine.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. Dual striped tennis courts ad hoc subcommittee, is that what we called it? I guess that's what we called it, with Commissioner Bond and Commissioner Peters. So who would like to report out?
I guess I will. I think we met. I think we had a good, productive first meeting. I think we have some preliminary ideas, and we would like to agendize a discussion of our recommendations. I don't know if I can do that now, or do I wait to the next item?
We'll do it on the next item.
Okay, so on the next item, we will talk about scheduling that. I don't think, is there anything, I'm forgetting anything, Mars?
Nope.
No, okay.
Okay.
I would also like to point out that that is what you all named this ad hoc subcommittee. Their goal is to review dual striped, where you could possibly have dual striped on the tennis courts. They are not a generalized pickleball ad hoc subcommittee.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me make sure. Okay, so we would need a motion in a second to receive that file. Looks like we already have one. To receive and file those updates.
I have a motion by Commissioner Mohammed, seconded by Commissioner Bond, to receive and file updates from the members of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission ad hoc subcommittees and representative appointees to outside associations and city committees. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and that passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Item A5, approval of the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Commission 2025 meeting calendar and receipt and file of the upcoming agenda items list with adjustments, if any.
So this item is a little different tonight than it is traditionally. We do have, as you all know, you all meet the first Tuesday of every month. So we have identified the first Tuesday of every month for the 2025 calendar. And tonight we are prepared to change any of these dates in case in case this commission decides that. In addition to that, looking ahead, the November 5th meeting has been canceled due to it falling on election night. And a special meeting has been scheduled for Thursday, November 21st. And on that agenda is plunge policies and rules, and some finance information also that was added last meeting. And then in December, you will need to create your biannual report to City Council, so we'll have that. There will be a budget discussion for 25-26 fiscal year, and staff will bring a presentation on the activities and the carnival during Disability Awareness Month. In January, looking at the beginning of the new year, if that meeting stays on January 7th, we have a presentation and recommendation to City Council to approve the parks plan. You will be able to see what will the plan in a version that is heading to City Council. So that will be January. Talking about City Council items coming up this month. So at the October 14th meeting, PRCS needs to have City Council approve not a commendation, I can't think of the word right now, but it's to apply for Measure A funding from LA County. So that's going forward for approval. We need to, we have an item about recreational class instructors, and right now they're capped to get paid at $50,000. So the item is requesting that they be allowed to be paid over $50,000. That has to deal with administrative approval versus City Council. So it's just more getting City Council to approve it. And then we have a shade structure at El Marino Park that rose above the limit for administrative purchasing. So we're asking City Council for permission to spend the funds to buy it. So that's October 14th. The last thing I want to say before I open this up for discussion is the next two meetings are, the locations are not in chambers, possibly. The November meeting will be at the Senior Center in A4. That's the activity room over by the gym in that building. The reason we will not be meeting here is because there will be a electronic and system upgrade to chambers in the month of November. So all commissions and all meetings held after the City Council meet will be at a different location. That upgrade may be finished for your December 3rd meeting, which means you may be in this room for your December 3rd meeting. However, if that upgrade is still happening, I have reserved the Rotunda Room at Veterans Memorial Building to hold your meeting. So as soon as I know information, I will make sure you're aware of the location of that meeting. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there's been a request from the ad hoc subcommittee to agendize the information about the dual stripe tennis courts information, about their activity. So is there a particular date that you think that that's best for?
Yeah, we were thinking we would best have all the information and stuff that we need for the January meeting.
Does that work for staff? I think that's,
Madam Chair, the question is, does it work?
we can't hear you.
The only thing on your January meeting right now is the Olin is presenting the final version of the Parks Plan. So there is a good chance that if you did add it to January, it will go hand in hand with the information you're getting that night anyway.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yeah, it's whether or not we want to do it, not whether or not staff
Well-
wants to do it. They will
Well,
share any concerns that
they-
they've got about scheduling.
Well, they have requested it or suggested it.
No, our subcommittee suggested it.
Yeah. Oh,
For
so
that
the
date.
staff, so then,
Staff would object to anything that we would agree to.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm a
because-
nodding head in support of,
Part of it is
January.
because our November meeting is a special meeting. I think we only are allowed to basically discuss one item. And then it looks like our December meeting is already with the biannual report and starting the budget discussion. That seems like that's already going to be a lot. And so it seems like January might be a good time. And it might be a good time just to think about it since we're thinking about the parks plan as
yeah,
well.
that does seem like a good date.
If I may, I concur that it would be really advantageous to have it on the same meeting night as we look at the park plan. And I'm basing this upon some of the conversations that I heard from the public when I attended the first Parks Plan meeting relative to their understanding of the proposed changes in each of the parks and then the parks as a whole. So I think this would be a good.
Yes. Thank you, my colleagues.
So I have 3 nodding heads, so we will add it
Yes.
to the January.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair Leonard, I also was, wanted to know, because there is this new fee study that is coming through, and I believe it's gonna be, presented at one of the meetings very soon, and I forget which group. I was wondering if it would be possible to get a presentation from somebody at the city about the new plan for the new fee structures and what they're thinking, and to agendize a discussion about those fees, since it's very important to the parks with the fees. But I don't know when to do that.
So the city council's subcommittee on finance and fees is meeting on Thursday. Is that correct?
So the timeline, I can't officially say dates, but there is a study session happening for city council coming up probably this month that will be focused on that fee study. It has already gone to the Finance Advisory Committee, that it went at their last meeting. Ideally, the timeline is if it goes this month, then it will be officially voted on in November. There are a lot of changes in it for PRCS. So I would recommend maybe in December, asking to agendize this so we can see where the study is approved, where it lies with city council. And then that way, we would be able to actually present on things and say, okay, this is where we are with it, with what our section got approved. So that's where the fee study is right now.
So the fee study goes basically straight to council through their subcommittees and their process.
So, yeah, so it went to the Finance Advisory Committee first. It's going through, I think, I'm not sure the date, but very soon, maybe even this week, to the ad hoc subcommittee that
Yes.
City Council has. And then the working session of it, which again, this is all from finance, so I don't know what it means to have a working session during City Council, but that is supposed to go to City Council this month, so that ideally, before the end of the year, they will vote to approve it or not.
Okay.
Chair
Yes.
Leonard?
I'm a bit bothered by the fact that since many of the fees that are being discussed are specifically Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, that we're not consulted. I mean, we're an advisory body, and this would be an area where we would have skin in the game.
This is what I brought up last time.
So I'm kind of disturbed that we're not part of the process. But I mean, obviously, I can complain to you guys, but really, I suppose we should complain to the city manager about that.
I have a question regarding that fee study. Is that all-inclusive so that it will include the park development fee that I was discussing at our last meeting? Or is that separate?
That's a separate thing.
So that will be separate? Because, okay.
The fee study is about, it's a finance department item that analyzed every fee from every city department.
But not that park development, you know which one?
No, that's not a fee from the city, that's a development fee, there's difference. We're not
Okay.
charging members of the public that
Well,
impact fee.
okay, I thought we were using the fee loosely, this is why I'm asking the question. I would say that I feel the same way about the park development fee, though, that Commissioner Mohammed was commenting regarding the fee study in general. If the Finance Advisory Committee gets to have review time and opine on it, I think that this commission that actually is much closer to the operations and working with the department, that we should have a shot too.
And I agree.
I can honestly tell you, I can announce when once it's announced it's going to city council, I can let you know and you can let city council know at that time. I mean, based on the timeline they've told me, it would have had to have come to this meeting.
The problem in doing it that way, though, is that we can only comment as individuals and not as a body as a whole, because we have to do things that way. So there's something.
As an
wrong with the
individual, you can
process.
say this should have gone to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we need to draft a letter stating our concern with respect to that.
If you
So-
want to agendize an item in November, we can try to, I mean, traditionally, a special meeting doesn't have multiple items, but if you all want to draft a memo, we can add it to your agendas.
Are there two kinds of, I'm sorry, I should be going through the chair. Are there two kinds of special, I mean, is this was going to focus on pool, but technically, don't things become a special meeting when we don't have them on our regular meeting night, which is what this is?
Yeah, well, I technically the purpose of calling a special meeting is to call it on a specific item. It's not because just because you've changed the meeting.
So it's called something else when we're just changing it, say, because originally.
No, you can't, if you decide not to have a meeting on the first Tuesday of the month, you need to cancel that meeting. And then you don't have a meeting that month. If you want to call a special meeting on any other day, you would call a special meeting. You can't just move a meeting and call it a special meeting.
No, I think, okay, I'll try to explain myself better. I apologize. In November, originally, we were talking about, I'm talking many months ago, we were talking about moving the day because it fell on Election Day.
And at that time, I said, you can't move a meeting. We can cancel your November 5th meeting. And then if you want to call a special meeting, you can. And at that meeting, the commission said we'd like to call a special meeting to discuss items from the plunge.
Right. That's what I recalled
So-
was the history behind it, yes.
So with regard to that, I suppose fees at the plunge could be discussed in that, during that meeting.
Yeah, the current fees at the plunge we could discuss.
So there's a little carve-out opportunity for us, but,
I will also just let everyone know the fee study for Culver City has been going on since 2019. I'm not sure, Commissioner
Yes.
Mohammed, if you were here.
I was
He was
here,
here.
and
So that's
no
when this fee
discussion of
study-
that has ever come up in front of this body as far as I've been here. We have talked about talking about it, but it's never actually been agendized, and we were never part of the process. That is what I'm,
so it came to my awareness when I received, I believe it was through the Gov Delivery, information about the city council's subcommittee on finance, and I don't have it in front of me. It's, thank you, that one,
Yes,
the audit
that's where I
financial
saw it
funding.
as well.
And it's within, and when I opened their agenda, that's when I saw it, knowing that that's the point that it's at already. So I was planning on attending that meeting, because is that not a public meeting?
It is a public meeting. It's agendized, correct? It was
It's
a public
agen-
agenda? Yeah, it's a public meeting.
So I was just going to go as a human being, as a private person,
resident of Culver
a
City.
resident of Culver City, and just see where they were at and what was going on with it. So
There'd probably be some opportunity for public comment at that meeting as well.
yes, and I think there may also be, and I may be out of order, but we can find out, if there are 3 nodding heads on this commission to make statements about it at that meeting, then we have that opportunity. Is that correct?
Discussion about the fee study and sending someone, it should be an agendized item.
Oh, well,
Here, I have a suggestion, if I may.
okay,
Here's what I do. Sometimes when I make comments before the city council, we have to, of course, acknowledge the fact that we are speaking as an individual and not representing this body unless this body has taken a position on it. However,
during an agendized item,
yes.
right?
But I also add an addendum on there to state, however, my personal comments are definitely informed by all the work that I do sitting on the dais as a commissioner. That way, it kind of underlines it, that the comments that are going to follow are by an individual who has a stated interest in it. So it isn't representing the commission, but it's certainly elevating it a little in terms of what's being said. That's what
I also just, as an advisory commission, I just want to remind you, this fee study is for the entire city. We are one chapter in a very long chapter list.
Yes.
It is not a PRCS fee study. It is not directed towards PRCS in any way. And if we're looking at the advisory bodies, this falls under the Financial Advisory Committee. It is not run by PRCS. It does not fall in your purview. So I understand the complaint. I actually am not opposed to me letting finance know, hey, in the future, like this was something that might have needed to happen. But if we're talking about the role of this commission based on the policy for commissions and committees, the fee study does not fall under your purview. It falls under the purview of the Finance Advisory Committee because it's coming from the Department of Finance, and it does not specialize in PRCS.
I make a
Okay, yes.
suggestion.
Commissioner Peters.
As part, or as an additional, because in December, we are discussing the budget, and the fees, I would assume, would affect the budget. What if we got a report that would either be, if the fees have already all been passed, maybe just a report on like what fees are changing and how that might affect the PRCS income? And if the city council has not yet, if they've just still have the draft fees list, but they have not
Is that public,
voted on that yet,
the draft?
we could at least discuss sending somebody to the city council to talk about how we see it.
So the draft of the fee study is public.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just going to let everyone know this is not on the agenda tonight. But you can read the draft of the fee study.
I did.
The PRCS section,
Yeah, it's on page like 407.
exactly. Again, this is why it's not in the purview of this commission, because it is not a PRCS specific thing. But I am going to, because it is public document, I will let you know, a huge analysis was done by the outside consultant of various fees and PRCS. I'm just making sure they put it in, yeah. So the recommendation is that our fees, instead of giving us recommended fees, the recommendation is that we will have a formula that we can use to change our fees every year. And so every year we'd be able to go to City Council and go, we're updating the PRCS fees using this fee schedule, the formula that's in the fee study, to allow us to keep market rate, because we're one of the few departments that has to deal with market rate. That being said, I don't think we would be able to answer all of what you just asked by December, because we're not getting a set of fees right now. We have been working with the finance department to do an analysis of our revenue, our cost recovery, how we're pricing things. So right now, finance has been, my understanding is what finance told the Finance Advisory Committee is that this is a recommended direction for PRCS, but PRCS is also doing quite a bit of research in order to analyze, I don't know what just happened, in order to analyze how they can best use this. Part of that research was I was sent to become certified in financial sustainability for government. So a lot of what came out of that certification is utilized with this formula and how we may roll it out. Again, I would say staff is not at a place to be able to do a presentation by December. I recommend everyone look at the draft. It is, like I said, public. Thank you,
Yes.
Director, for letting me know that so that I could freely talk about that. And you would get more insight into what they're recommending for PRCS. It is not, at this time, our department is not getting, like other departments are getting more set things, we are not. It's more of a, here's some tools to continue figuring out what you want to roll out in the future. So it's just the beginning steps for us.
Okay, thank you. And I know that we're kind of walking a very fine line here, getting deep into this particular item. However, as my very dear friend Dave McCarthy used to say, he was a deputy city attorney here for many, many years. In the course of determining what to agendize and how to agendize it, this item has come up and is in our consciousness here. So I think we're good to be able to have gotten this deep, to be able to discuss this opportunity, to not being able to agendize it specifically until it's appropriate to do so.
What I would recommend is I will be able to give an update during staff updates in December about whether it got approved, like where they are with it,
Okay.
how far it's gotten, and what the next steps are for PRCS. And then at that time, we can agendize something possibly.
Thank you.
I guess since, what I'm hearing, since I have not had a chance to review, but it sounds like there's going to be a formula involved, that may be a better opportunity for us to get that report and have some public comment about the formula, assuming the formula gets approved, how it will be applied in the future. And that may be a better venue for this conversation.
It could be discussed with the budget item, I suppose.
Or its
Commissioner
own
Peters
separate
mentioned.
item when we get a report on kind of where staff is in terms of applying the recommendations or the recommended formulas for new fees.
Yes. I do invite
Yes.
all of my fellow commissioners to read it. It's fascinating reading. No, it actually is really interesting. It's actually very interesting, so thank you. That. Didn't you find it fascinating, Commissioner Peters?
I did. I probably did not do as close as a read. I just found out that this came out earlier today. So I did not, but I did a quicker read, but I did find it really interesting to think about how you should set fees and what is the right way of doing it.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for understanding, and thank you, Adam and staff, to help us through that one. So I think we have gotten to the end of that item. And is there anything else that
Yes.
anybody would like being requested? Yes, Vice Chair
Two
Alexander.
observations. Unfortunately, I will not be able to make next month's meeting because I'll be in Washington, DC. And secondly, I found out something, which is, I thought when I originally became on the commission that it was kind of a neat idea that since we have facilities in our parks, that we occasionally have our meetings there. What I didn't know at the time was apparently if we want any member of the public to see it live, we can only do that here in this facility, not in any of the other facilities. So I have since changed my mind in terms of I like to be able to go where the people are, but I have a sense that there may be more of them out there in cyberspace. So just keep in mind, every time that we don't meet in these chambers, it's not going to be provided live to the public.
Okay.
To clarify, because I'm getting
Oh.
some looks, so if you want it aired on cable, live, it has to happen in this room. What we can do is always record it and then do a loop later on. But that's really up to city clerk and if it's in their budget to have it recorded off-site. But that's the primary thing, is that through cable or YouTube, this room is set up for that. So if we go elsewhere, people can only join us via WebEx.
WebEx.
Okay, yeah, because I kind of remember we did live video feed from like the Rotunda room in the
Yeah,
past.
if the city clerk approves it, we don't do a live feed. They record it and then show it on a loop
Okay,
as a recording.
So
But it has
change
to
in
be
policy.
approved by city clerk.
okay, got it.
And I do have a question about the channels. What is the channel that this is on? What is the city channel now? It's not 35 anymore.
Oh, is it not?
I haven't been able to see city council meetings on television through my Spectrum 35 for a long time.
No, it's 30, oh, I'll ask the city clerk, because
Thank you.
he has it listed as 35 and 37,
Yeah, there's
and 99 if you're AT&T.
something a little funky there.
Okay, I'll find out.
But YouTube is always good for
Yeah, it
after
says
the fact.
Right on the front of our agenda, Channel 35 for Spectrum. And Channel 37 for Frontier, and Channel 99 for AT&T and UVerse.
Thank you. Well, so it says right there, but there's something funky going on in the back end. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to,
Oh,
wait, what?
I still had items.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you have, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So there are more items.
Yeah, so,
ahead.
again, my annual complaint about our November meeting falling on Election Day. So I will lodge that now, again, for 2025. I wish there's something we could do to have a special something, not a special meeting, but just for that month, when there's an election, that we were able to move our date and still have a normal meeting at a different day in the month. I don't know who I can petition that for that, but that's my
The
complaint.
city clerk has said that anything that doesn't happen on your day has to be a special meeting. We can't move meetings.
Boy, it sounds like I need a meeting with the city clerk, huh?
We'll have to agendize.
No, I just double checked. There's no like primary, so like the other days, like this year, we actually had conflicts with primary
March
and
and November.
November, but next year it's just November that we have an issue with, so. But, yeah, you would think, us being Americans and, voting is an important part of our, nation, that we would have something special in the city for if your normal day falls on an election. But like I said, I think I just need to have a private citizen meeting with the city manager, ask some questions about that. But that's it. I just wanted to get that one on the record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Any
we
other
can
items?
cancel it now and schedule something if you want.
Right, but then it's scheduling a special
Maybe
meeting.
a scheduling of a
and-
special meeting, but we can do it at any time. So if you wanted to do that to approve the dates now, we can cancel the November 5th and do a special meeting on a date you all decide.
Wait, can you repeat that?
What?
The Patacha room.
We actually all get vote by mail ballot, so. I
Well, and
think we're
voting's
more
like
cons-
11 days now, too.
Yes,
So-
I think the more concern is for the public who may wish to go on that particular day and time because it feels more patriotic to them to do so.
I'm not sure will we have an election in 2025 in November?
Yes, I did double
Oh,
check
okay.
the county's calendar.
I thought we weren't supposed to do that any longer.
Unfortunately, Commissioner Mohammed, I believe you may not be with us. Are you termed out?
Oh, not yet.
No, but no, by November.
No, not yet.
No?
I still get one more year after that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was.
Thanks, John. I see where I'm going. All right, fine.
I read it wrong from the website.
Are there any more items to be agendized from commissioners or attempts at agendization, agendizement? Okay.
And no concerns with your meeting dates.
I'm sorry?
I just want to make sure there's no concern with your meeting dates.
I do not have my 2025 calendar with me, built out, all of it yet, but probably not, only this November.
We'll just have to think of something really good for April 1st.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I didn't even notice.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
catch.
Duly noted, Commissioner Bond. Okay, anybody have anything they need to say about those dates right now, at this point? No, not planned out yet. Okay, so we do, okay, now we will have a motion and a second, which we have to accept, to approve the commission meeting calendar and upcoming agenda items as discussed.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Bond, seconded by Commissioner Peters, to approve the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission 2025 meeting calendar and receive and file the upcoming agenda items list with adjustments. And you may start voting. And the votes are in. And that passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment items not on the agenda?
No, you do not.
Okay, and items from members and staff? Staff?
Francisca, you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. So this month marks Disability Awareness Month, and at the October 14th City Council meeting, there will be a few proclamations and an accommodation. The Disability Advisory Committee we'll be recognizing an individual for their outstanding service to the community with individuals with disabilities. Presentations start right after closed session at 6:30, Adam-ish, more or less.
Yeah, it really depends on how long closed session goes, but technically it's listed as 6:30.
Thank you. So more or less it's on the agenda for 6:30, but again, right after closed session, we welcome you to join us if you are available. The Disability Advisory Committee would definitely love to have the support of the commission if you all are available. You will be receiving a staff report in, I believe, December regarding the Abilities Carnival and Resource Fair. But I just want to thank, staff, volunteers, the commission for your support with this event. Last year, we had 212 RSVPs. This year, we have 365 RSVPs. So this event is in collaboration with the Exchange Club, the Girl Scouts, and the Culver City Senior Citizen Association. So I just wanted to kind of publicly, prior to the event, thank everyone who has contributed and will be continuing to contribute the day of the event, and also cleaning up and organizing everything that has to go back in our storage spaces. So if you're available, please stop by. It's this Sunday, October 6th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We would love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Danny?
Hello. So as an FYI, we will be doing some work on the dog park. So we will be closing it October 14th through the 16th and reopening on the 17th. And hopefully no rain will come and wash away some of the work that we've done. In addition, on October 26th, we have Spooky Splash and Trunk or Treat. Trunk or Treat will be from 4 to 7. We'll have costume parade, spookiest car contest. This will be at Vets Park in the parking lot. And we'll have cars opening their trunks so that kids can go through and get candy. And then from 6 to 8 p.m. will be Spooky Splash, where we'll have different activities, obstacle course, diving board, pumpkin toss, all very holiday themed. That's what I have.
It's fun. Thank you.
Adam, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Just a couple things. You might have noticed that the lights on Vets are finally fixed. And we did, I asked staff to make them pink for this month in honor of, or for awareness for breast cancer awareness. But we've got other options that we'll be trying out, some different things. I think we can do some Halloween items, like when we have the Halloween event, we'll probably switch it out to some things. Still learning, working some kinks out, but looks like it has a lot of possibilities. So we're excited about trying that out. If any of you have driven by El Marino, you may have noticed that the playground is under construction and being upgraded, replaced. As we speak, they started last week, they'll be working this week, and then the surfacing is scheduled to take place next week. And then we may be reaching out to you regarding kind of like an unveiling or something. Something small and informal, like an unveiling sometime later this month. So we'll let you know when that gets finalized and scheduled if you want to stop by and watch the kiddos, maybe bring the kids and try out the new equipment. We're going to have there's a lot of new pieces being added that weren't there before. Some more like accessible pieces and just a lot more interactive sensory type panels and things like that. So it should be pretty exciting. And then, as Adam stated, we'll be going to council on the 14th to get the approval to purchase a shade structure. So that'll be coming. We didn't want to wait, so we're putting the playground in. We'll do the shade structure. It's going to be a few months out, but it'll be coming. And I know it was heavily requested by the public, and so we're excited to bring that in. And then lastly, just FYI, next week, myself, Danny, Francisca, Adam, and one of the supervisors, we will all be in Atlanta for the National Recreation and Parks Association Conference. So we'll all be out next. I mean, we'll be checking our emails and things like that. So you can certainly get a hold of us, but we will be attending that conference next week in Atlanta, learning what everyone else is doing and what's going on across the country in our profession. So that's all that I have for you this night. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we assume their website is up and good and valid. Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you. Any other additional items or comments from commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair Alexander.
I really appreciated the work that's being done by Olin on the Parks Master Plan and being on the subcommittee with Commissioner Mohammed. It gives me a good feel that we made a good choice in making that recommendation. I don't know if he feels the same. One of the things that I asked Jessica if she could possibly do that I think might help the commission, more specifically perhaps the subcommittee on the multi-striping, but also the public, is that I think it's great when you look at, particularly online, when you look at I think there's a term of art for the graphics where you have the slider where you can pull it across to show the before and after. That's great. But then when you start thinking about the totality of all 13 of the parks as a whole, I'm sure you folks are doing well with it. For me, I'm sitting here wondering, wow, it's like, how many more pickleball courts and tennis courts and, ball fields and stuff are being recommended through that, So I asked her if it was possible in doing their work to provide kind of like a matrix that would show that to us so we could get an idea of, in the totality, what exactly is being proposed to the public, because at least for me, sometimes it was great going down to the granular detail, but I think sometimes doing too much of that, the totality of everything tends to get lost a little bit. And I know from the comments that I've heard, there's a lot of interest in the public, particularly when you're talking about the various kind of sports facilities that the kids or the adults can be using. So I asked if she could potentially do that, so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, my only comment is just thank you, staff, as always, for just really extensive work that you do. Fiesta, the Abilities Carnival, I'm really looking forward to, and I know Exchange Club is very, excited and involved very much with that. It's really, it's such an important event, and yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun. I'm just really appreciative to this department and to my colleagues because there's just so much work here. And I noticed that one of the things that I've said for a long time is that PRCS is the heart, our parks are the heartbeat of Culver City, and I see that Olin is using that on some of their material. That's not that it came from me specifically, but it's a shared idea. It's a shared understanding that is the case here. And I'm just really, really appreciative of the very high standards that are set here and that are acknowledged across the country about our programs and our senior center and so forth. So thank you very much for that. Okay, without further ado, we will go to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Yes, we do, and a second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Mohammed, seconded by Vice Chair Alexander, to adjourn. And you may start voting. And the votes are in, and we are adjourned at 9:54 p.m.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.